Now they say hindsight is 20/20, and they're probably right because I have my share of regrets, including buying guns back in the day before I knew anything. And I wish I would have known this before buying guns, so I would have saved a lot of time, energy, and money in the process. I'm referring to the fact that I should have bought these two guns first. So what two guns am I referring to? The first is going to be a Glock 9mm pistol, double stack duty sized, with some criteria we'll talk about here in just a minute, as well as an AR-15 chambered in 5.56 NATO from a reputable manufacturer. It all sounds very obvious, doesn't it? But there are some great reasons as to why this should be the case. So if you're new to buying firearms or new to the genre in general, this would be great information for you. But even if you've been in it for a while, but you're not running these particular weapons because of reasons, this could help you stop hemorrhaging, if you know what I mean. What do I mean by that? Well, let's get into it. So first off, these guns are going to save you the time, money, and energy for a few different reasons. The first one is logistics, okay? The logistics system for AR-15s and Glock pistols beats everything else. You can get all the parts, magazines, and accessories you could possibly want for either of these guns. If I were to go buy these guns right now, what would I be looking for? Well, first off, on the Glock, I would want it to have at least some sort of optics mounting system. Having the option for the future might be worth it for any compatibility that you seek out later on. This is their new A-cut slide that's made for the Aimpoint Koa, but I'd be looking for at least that or the Glock MOS system. And of course, you want to make sure you have a rail on your dust cover in case you want to add a light. Even if you don't want a light now, you might later on, and that makes life a lot easier for you. I would say Glock 19 is the smallest size I would go for this particular exercise, but personally I prefer a Glock 45, and of course a Glock 17 or a 47 or any of those other models would be great as well. When it comes to the AR-15, what would I be looking for there? Well, first off, a reputable manufacturer. You want to avoid some of those pitfalls that happen when you get a cheaper AR-15. It's not that it's hard to fix or work on AR-15s, it's that if you don't have the knowledge, it makes it very difficult to diagnose. If you're just getting started, or if I had just got started, I would have liked to have bought a reputable AR-15. Other than that, what I'd be looking for is generally a 16-inch barrel. I don't have to worry about any SBR laws or using a pistol brace or anything like that. Plus it has good ballistics. Then I'd also be looking for it to have a full-length handguard with a full-length top rail, because that way I can add whatever accessories I want to in the future. That's what I'd be looking for in these rifles and pistols. Now, maintenance is also very easy on these guns. Some guns require different levels of actually taking them apart in order to maintain them properly. Of course, I'd want to avoid that if I was just getting started. Ammo is less expensive for these guns too. 9mm is one of the cheaper, capable handgun rounds that's out there. And the same can be said for 5.56 NATO, used by military and police all around the world, and it's still affordable to shoot in comparison to other rifle cartridges. And another thing that's really good about these two guns is that you can get training on these specific guns. You can get armorers courses, carbine and pistol courses, where the trainers and the professionals there are going to know exactly how to work with your AR-15 or your Glock pistol. This allows you to get a little bit more enhanced with your training for these particular platforms that might not be as easily accessed as other more obscure firearms. You also can work on these guns very easily, even as a beginner. Glocks are notoriously easy pistols to work on, and AR-15s are very simple. And so fixing a broken extractor spring on a Glock is no big deal. But if I wanted to try to do that on some obscure pistol from 1947, it might be a little bit harder to do. All those things go into the favor of why these guns would actually save you time, money, and energy. Another great reason is that you're prepared for just about anything in the country when it comes to self-defense. There's not really anything that these guns can't do besides very niche situations. A few different things could come up, like bear defense, for example. But honestly, if I had this AR-15 in bear country, I'd still feel pretty good about it. But of course, it's not necessarily ideal. So there's very few circumstances where these guns won't do the job of protecting your life. For the average person, it's really going to be a non-issue. Now, why should I have bought these guns? What's like the real reason? Real quick, just in case, if you've ever tried to go out and run your guns like somebody proper and realize that you're very bad at it, or if you've ever had to pick up baby oil on your way to a freak off because, that happens to some of us sometimes, hit the subscribe button down below, because that way my handler can go ahead and divide you up into different lists so it's easier for them to figure out who to target next. If I would have bought these guns first, it would have been great, because what I should have done is then taken them out and shot the shit out of them. And I could have shot them so much that I would have actually got good at shooting. You know what doesn't really let you do that? Building an obscure 450 Bushmaster build or a weird 300 Blackout build before you even have a silencer. All of that stuff just limited my ability to get out and actually be more proficient. Not to mention my first pistol was a revolver. Everything lined up for me to have less success with my firearms proficiency, whereas these two guns would give you the best chance of success. Once I got good at shooting these guns, then I could have branched out. And why is that? Because now I have the gold standards of which to weigh everything against. Gold standards are great to have, and that's why you should have these, even if you don't necessarily like them the best, right? The Glock isn't necessarily my favorite pistol. The AR-15 isn't necessarily my favorite rifle, but they are the firearms that I can weigh all my other pistols and rifles to in order to decide what works and what doesn't. And because of that, I have a much more informed opinion about the practicality of some of these other firearms. When you have the SIG MCX Spear in 308 over here compared to the BCM AR-15, you understand it's very heavy and it has limited application based on that additional weight. Not to mention something like the HK USP, which is one of my favorite pistols, but I wouldn't know why I like it so much unless I could compare it directly to the Glock to understand the pros and cons of both platforms. So just having the AR-15 and the Glock in 9mm lets me be more strategic about other firearms purchases that I've made and gives me more justification for why these things might be able to stay in my inventory. So that's what I wish I knew before I started buying guns. It should have just been these two first. It would have saved me all that time, energy, and money that I wasted. And in all honesty, I truly believe I'd be just a better shooter right now than I currently am. Make sure you leave a comment below if you disagree with me, or if you do agree with me, let people know why. Of course, if you need anything else from me, you can go to magicprepper.com because there's things and stuff there, and you might like it, and I like you. So besides that, that's gonna be it for Magic Prepper.